All right. I think we are up with
Melanie.
Melanie. All right, Melanie. How do you build a culture that supports the psychological need of greatest priority for your students and staff at your center?
I've identified optimism to be the highest priority need because when students come in here, when families come here, they do have that seed of optimism because that's why they walked in the door. And it's really my job to make sure that we grow that and that we keep that going. Since I started here 2 years ago, that was what I prioritized and I was very intentional about, was that everyone who came in the door, whether it's a staff, a student, or a prospective student, someone from the community visiting, I wanted to ensure that they had a positive experience in my center. And positive experience doesn't mean you always get what you want, but it means you were heard and you were treated with kindness and you left feeling like you were treated with dignity when you walked out the door. So that's where I started from. I always make sure I greet everybody who walks in the center. I really take time to have casual and individual conversations, not just with my students, but with my staff as well. And that has really worked to build that openness and honesty that's part of my culture. I try to listen more than I speak. I really avoid why questions because that puts people on the spot and they might feel defensive, even if I'm trying to get at that why, even if I want to know why my teacher wanted to be a teacher or why the student is sitting in front of me. I'm very careful not to say, why are you here? Because students who've experienced trauma, that can lead them to be very defensive. And that leads into my final point for this question, for the optimism and psychological need piece. It has always been very important to me to discuss and model trauma and poverty sensitivities in my center as part of building that culture, to understand where our students are coming from, to understand why they're acting the way they are. Instead of saying, why are you like that? You say, what happened to you? And the way I've done that, to be more practical, is when a staff member has brought up a problem student to me, I talk about what I know about trauma sensitivity and different backgrounds as to why the student may be acting the way they are. And I've really encouraged this with my staff. I bought them books on trauma sensitivity to start the year out with, to continue the conversation we started at PD. And then on the other side of that, and this is really important, secondary trauma and compassion fatigue are really big, and that can really kill the optimism in your culture. I really watch out for my staff. I keep an eye out to see if they're looking stressed. Sometimes they might just need someone that they can come talk to and vent to, and they're not necessarily coming in for me to solve all their problems. They just need to let it go because they've had a really rough day or something difficult has happened. But overall, that is keeping that optimism in mind and being very intentional about starting my day on that positive note and ending it on that positive note is what I have focused on since starting here.
Okay, excellent. Next up.
Hey, Mel, let's see what we have left over to say. So a lot of Mel of what you said, I totally agree, and a lot of it is what I had mentioned too. I think it's very important just to build trust with both students and staff. And most importantly is that you can't make any assumptions. You have to be open-minded and listen is my biggest thing. I know a lot of people feel like they're not heard with teachers and staff. So if you kind of just like sit back, listen to their opinions and their viewpoints, just so that you get the staff's buy-in, you can build a lot of support from both parties there. Also too, I ask a lot about their personal life. I think it's important to have a good personal and work-life balance. So I always ask like, hey, what'd you guys do over the weekend? How was your kid's birthday party, different things like that, just because I do care. And I have a family of my own, so I totally understand that. Also too, I would say for first impressions are huge to me because I treat that personally. Everyone that walks into GR South, you guys know GR South, we have a good amount of company that comes through, but I want them to feel like they're at home, okay? So, hey, how are you doing? How's your day going? Do you need anything? And that's kind of how I buy in too. I always say, like, find something that you guys really like. I like shoes. When I go to my favorite shoe store, they greet me. They get my size, right? Let me know what else they have there for me to buy. They make me feel special. So that's important to me, especially when the parents are on board, because they see how serious that we are with education and just how important as that second or third chance can be.
Excellent. Thank you, Danielle. I think Kelly's up.
Hi there. I looked at it a little bit differently. I look at the psychological need of the students, and we look at competency and belongingness. And what we do is we always have the open communication here. We promote our social workers. If the student's having a tough time, I get Latasha involved, and we've got several students that are reaching out to our social workers. The other thing is, I ditto what they're saying about making sure you know your students when they walk in the door. When they walk in, make sure you're greeting them and saying hi to them. Have an open door policy. We have our students come in here, we talk to everybody. We also have art projects to make them feel like they belong here and they're useful. We do crazy things like making slime and things like that, and having snowball fights, and just different things like that, making ice cream so they feel like they belong too. And the other part is that competency. When they talk to us about personal issues that are going on in their life, we want to make sure that they do talk to the social workers, and we always keep that confident. We make sure are confidential. We want to make sure that everybody here knows what's going on teacher wise, because we want to make sure that if a student walks in, they don't have to tell their story again. So our teachers know every student that walks through the door. We also stress those anxiety management strategies and taking breaks, and we do that for our teachers also.
Outstanding, Kelly. Thank you. And last but not least, Amber.
All right, they've touched on almost everything. I definitely have that open door policy, wanting to know all of my students one-on-one and staff one-on-one, getting to know them. But I also talked about that usefulness for that psychological need, and wanting, if there is a strength that my staff or students have, then to try to build off of it. I know like one of my staff members is very creative, and to allow them to do the certain projects has helped in building some of that culture as well. And so trying to find out what those strengths are by getting to know them personally and talking to each staff student one-on-one has definitely helped. And that's, I go back to that open door, open communication, and being positive piece.
That's great. Thank you, everybody.